Rain streaked the skylight of Zara Klein's cramped Berlin attic apartment, a gray smear against the night as she hunched over her laptop, debugging code for a freelance app project. The clock blinked 2:17 a.m., her eyes gritty from hours of screen glare, when her phone buzzed on the cluttered desk. A WhatsApp notification from Mr. Hensley, the soft-spoken librarian from her small Oregon hometown, who'd once slipped her sci-fi novels under the counter. His message was curt, chilling. "I'm so sorry, Zara. I saw this today." Attached was a shaky video, and as it loaded, Zara's breath caught. The grainy footage opened on St. Jude's Parish, the old wooden church where she'd doodled in hymnals as a kid, now dim with candlelight and hushed voices. Her parents, Victor and Margot Klein, stood at the altar, faces drawn, Victor rigid in a black suit, Margot dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Behind them, an urn gleamed beside a projected photo. Zara at her high school graduation, all braces and shy smiles, captioned, "Zara Klein, 19962023, lost to despair." Victor's voice droned through the phone. "She took her own life but will always love her." And Margot's sob punctuated the lie. Zara's stomach lurched, coffee mug slipping from her hand to shatter on the floor. She was alive, here, now, coding in Berlin. Yet they'd staged her suicide, mourned her in a church 5,000 miles away. Her pulse hammered as she replayed it, the image of her own face flickering like a ghost on that screen. What the hell was this? The question clawed at her, raw and sharp, a mystery begging to unravel, and for anyone watching, a hook too wild to scroll past. 4 years ago, Zara Klein's life imploded in the fluorescent hum of her family's tech repair shop in Oregon, a cluttered storefront where she'd once fixed laptops beside her father Victor and mother Margot. She was 25 then, a quiet coder with dreams of building her own app, when her younger brother, Theo, a lanky 22-year-old with a Twitch obsession, hacked the business's PayPal account. He siphoned $120,000 to buy gaming rigs, LED lights, and a custom streaming chair, chasing a viral persona as Teotech. The theft unraveled fast. Clients complained, invoices bounced, and the books bled red. Zara caught it first, tracing the transactions to Theo's IP address. But when she confronted him, his smirk was cold. "You're too boring to pull this off. Prove it wasn't you." She took it to their parents, expecting justice, but Victor's jaw tightened and Margot's eyes narrowed. In the shop's back office, surrounded by gutted PCs and tangled cables, they turned on her. "You're the glitch here," Margot snapped, her voice venomous. "Theo's our future. You're just dead weight." Victor wouldn't meet her gaze, muttering, "You're a liability we can't afford." They pinned it on Zara, claiming she'd stolen the money in a jealous fit and emailed the family's client list. Zara's no longer part of Klein Tech. She betrayed us. By morning, she was out. No severance, no goodbye, just a locked door and a blocked number. She fled to Berlin, scraping by on freelance gigs, her online presence shrinking to a ghost's footprint. No Instagram, no X, just code and silence. She thought they'd moved on, rebuilt around Theo's streaming fame, until that video from Mr. Hensley cracked her world open again. They hadn't just disowned her, they'd erased her, buried her under Theo's lies to protect his glow. The betrayal stung fresh, a wound 4 years deep, and as she sat in her attic, rain drumming above, Zara felt the first ember of something hotter than grief. Fury. They'd scapegoated her, like she was a bug in their system. But she wasn't the one who'd crashed. Theo had, and they'd rewritten her out of the code to save him. Now, with her face on that memorial screen, she knew it wasn't over. They'd gone further, darker, and she needed to know how far. Zara Klein sat frozen in her Berlin attic, the rain a relentless tattoo against the skylight as she replayed Mr. Hensley's video on her cracked phone screen, the glow casting shadows across her pale face. Victor's monotone eulogy, she lost herself to despair, looped in her ears, each word a nail in a coffin she hadn't climbed into, while Margot's sobs, too perfect. She scrubbed the timeline back, pausing on their faces. Victor's jaw was set, unyielding, but his eyes were flat, untroubled. Margot's tears glistened, yet her mouth twitched with something like relief. This wasn't grief, it was a script. Her hands shook as she opened her laptop, fingers flying across keys, diving into the digital wreckage of her past. First, her old Gmail. Deactivate. Her stomach twisted. She tried her Oregon DMV record. Nothing. Just a blank where her license should have been. Then, the clincher, Oregon's public records site, a cold PDF staring back. Zara Klein, date of death, March 14, 2023. Cause, suicide by overdose. Certificate ID, OR 47-201-22-1. 2 years ago, while she'd been coding in a Berlin cafe, they'd killed her on paper. Her breath hitched, a ragged gasp in the quiet. Why? She tabbed to Theo's Twitch channel. Theo Tech, now boasting 200,000 followers. His latest stream pinned, a tour of a sleek studio. Neon lights, dual monitors, a leather chair. Captioned, "Built this with the family trust." Thanks, Grandma. Vara's chest tightened. That trust, $150,000 from their late grandmother, was hers, meant for her app startup, not Theo's ego. She clicked his archive, found a clip from last year. Theo, beer in hand, toasting, "To the brother who's finally free," his grin sharp as a blade. Free of her. The pieces snapped together. They'd faked her death to bury her claim, funneling the money to Theo's rise. She scoured X, finding whispers. Heard Klein text daughter OD'd, sad. And a reply, Theo said she was unhinged. Lies, seeded online, blooming into truth. Her vision blurred, not from tears but rage, hot and electric, surging through her veins. She wasn't just disowned, she was deleted. Her identity a casualty of their greed. The video looped again, Victor's voice a drone, but now she heard the subtext. Control, not sorrow. Theo's studio, Margot's dry eyes, the trust fund. It wasn't random. They'd forged her death certificate, scrubbed her digital footprint, and sold the story to everyone who'd listen. Her mouse hovered over Theo's live stream link. He was online now, laughing with chat, oblivious. She could crash it, expose him, but not yet. She needed proof, not just fury. The rain slowed, a drip against the silence, and Zara leaned back, eyes narrowing. This wasn't denial or a mistake. It was a cover-up, a calculated reboot of their family without her. But she wasn't a ghost in their machine. She was alive, and they'd coded her out one byte too far. The question burned. What else were they hiding? She'd find out, and when she did, their stream would crash for good. Zara Klein's attic apartment buzzed with purpose as dawn bled through the skylight, the rain replaced by a steely Berlin gray that matched her resolve. She hadn't slept. Couldn't, not with her own death certificate glaring from her laptop screen. But exhaustion fueled her now, a jagged edge to her focus. She opened folders, digital and physical, pulling every scrap of her life since Oregon. German work visas stamped with dates overlapping her suicide state, freelance contracts for app designs, rent receipts scrawled in her landlord's spiky hand, even a selfie time stamped March 14, 2023. Her death day, grinning over a latte in a Kreuzberg cafe. Each file was a brick in the wall she'd build against them. Unshakable proof she wasn't the ghost they'd made her. She emailed her cousin Lena, a barista back home who'd once braided her hair, typing, "It's Zara. I'm alive. What did they say? Lena's reply pinged back fast, hesitant. They told us you overdosed after a breakdown. Theo said he found you too late. We mourned you. Zara's jaw clenched. Theo, spinning tales while pocketing her trust fund, she needed more than words. She grabbed her coat, marched through Berlin's drizzle to a squat legal office where Frau Weber, a wiry lawyer with a chipped tooth and sharp eyes, blinked at her stack of papers. "You're suing to prove you're alive?" Weber asked, half amused, half stunned. "No," Zara said, sliding the forged certificate across the desk. "I'm suing to prove they killed me on paper. Fraud, identity theft, the works." Weber nodded, scribbling notes, promising filings with U.S. contacts. Back home, Zara dug deeper, hacking into old family email backups. There, a thread between Victor and a shady notary arranging her death for $5,000. Her pulse raced. This was dynamite. She cross-checked dates. The trust fund transfer to Theo hit 6 months after her overdose, buried in Klein textbooks as estate settlement. They'd planned it, every step, erasing her to fund his neon-lit lies. She texted Lena again, "Tell me about the memorial," but got silence. Lena's loyalty wavered. No matter. Zara had enough. Visas, contracts, selfies, emails, a timeline screaming her survival. She leaned back, the chair creaking, and pictured their faces. Victor's stern mask, Margot's fake tears, Theo's smug twitch. Weber's voice echoed in her head. It'll take time. Time she didn't have. Not with their lies still streaming. She saved her files, triple backed up, and stared at the selfie. Alive. Defiant. This wasn't just proof. It was ammunition. They'd buried her in silence, but she'd rise loud, and when she did, their system would crash. Zara Klein's phone buzzed on her cluttered desk as Berlin's dusk painted the attic in muted purples. A single line from an unknown number slicing through her restless calm. "They're holding your anniversary memorial this Saturday at St. Jude's." Her breath caught. 2 years since her death, and they were still playing the game, piling fresh lies on her grave. She stared at the message, fingers hovering, then booked a red-eye flight to Oregon, her pulse a drumbeat of dread and fire. The words weren't a warning, they were a dare, and she'd answer it. She packed light, laptop, evidence folder, a black hoodie, her mind racing through the plan. St. Jude's loomed in her memory, pews she'd fidgeted in, stained glass casting rainbows on her childhood Sundays, now a stage for their fraud. She saw Victor's stern jaw, rehearsing his eulogy, Margot's delicate sobs, a tissue poised for effect, Theo's grin, streaming their grief for clout. Her stomach twisted, not with fear but anticipation. She'd crash their show, and they wouldn't see her coming. On the plane, she rehearsed silently, lips moving. "I didn't die. You deleted me." The words felt solid, a weapon forged from 4 years of silence. She scrolled Theo's Twitch schedule. Saturday, live from St. Jude's, honoring my sister, and smirked. He'd hand her the spotlight. Landing in Portland, she rented a car, drove through Oregon's misty pines. The church's steeple piercing the fog like a beacon. She parked a block away, hood up, watching cars roll in, streamers, locals, Theo's fanboys in branded tees. Her fingers gripped the folder, papers rustling like a battle flag. This wasn't just a memorial. It was their victory lap, a stream to cement her erasure. But she wasn't erased. She was here, alive, a glitch they couldn't patch. The sky darkened, rain spitting, and Zara stepped out, boots crunching gravel. She'd waited 4 years for a reckoning. Now she'd give them one they'd never forget, and the world would watch. Zara Klein stood in the shadow of St. Jude's Parish, rain slicking her black hoodie as cars lined the Oregon street. their headlights cutting through the fog like mourners' lanterns. Inside, the church hummed, pews packed with locals, Theo's Twitch fans in garish Theotech tees, and a smattering of Kleintech clients, all drawn to the 2-year memorial for a sister they thought was dest. She peered through the cracked open doors. Candles flickered beneath her graduation photo, the urn glinting beside it, a mockery of her pulse beating now. Victor stood at the pulpit, voice low and steady. She was troubled, but we tried to save her. While Margot sat front row, rosary beads clicking, her sobs a delicate performance. Theo, phone propped on a tripod, streamed live, his face solemn as he murmured, "My sister's at peace now." Chat dropped some hearts for her. The screen glowed with emotes, a digital dirge for a lie. Zara's grip tightened on her laptop, evidence folder tucked under her arm, and she pushed the doors wide. They groaned on their hinges, a deep bellow that split the hush, and she stepped in, boots thudding on the hardwood, each strike a gunshot in the silence. Heads turned, gasps rippled, a kid in the back squeaked, "Mom, that's her!" She yanked off her hood, rain-damp hair framing her face, and strode down the aisle, eyes locked on her family. Victor's mouth froze mid-sentence, the mic amplifying his choked breath. Margot's rosary hit the floor, her faint a theatrical crumple into the pew. Theo fumbled his phone, the stream tilting wild as chat exploded. "WTF, she's alive?" Zara reached the altar, plugged her laptop into the projector, and her selfie, March 14, 2023, latte in hand, blazed over her memorial photo. "I didn't die," she said, voice cutting the air like a blade. "You deleted me." She slapped the folder down, papers spilling. Visas, contracts, the forged certificate, proof flashing on screen as she turned to the crowd. No overdose, no breakdown, just their lie to bury me. Phones lifted, red dots blinking, fans streaming over Theo's feed. She faced Victor, his face ashen. "You framed me for Theo's theft, $120,000 he stole." Then Margot, trembling, "You cried for a daughter, you erased." Finally, "Theo!" His tripod clattering as he backed up. "Enjoy the trust fund you built on my grave?" The room erupted. Whispers to shouts, "She's got proof," and "Theo's done." His stream hit 50,000 viewers. Chat a frenzy. "Expose Live Holy." Victor lunged for the mic. "This is a mistake." But Zara cut him off, projecting the notary email. $5,000 to kill me on paper. Your signature, Dad." Margot wailed, a real sob this time, and Theo's phone slipped, splashing into a candle's wax. The priest, wide-eyed, stammered, "Please come." But Zara turned to the crowd, voice steady. "They didn't lose me. They threw me away, and now you see why." A fan yelled, "Post the docs!" And she did, uploading to X mid-speech, the link racing through the church's Wi-Fi. Theo's stream crashed, his fans booing, and Victor sank to the pulpit, hands shaking. Margot clutched her coat, mascara streaking, while Theo bolted for the side door, tripped and sprawled in the aisle. Zara stood under her own image, alive, unbowed, and smiled. A slow, sharp thing. "You coded me out," she said, eyes sweeping them all, "but I just rebooted your lie." The crowd held its breath, phones still rolling, and she walked out, boots echoing, leaving their stage in ruins. Outside, rain washed her face, and the church bells tolled. A funeral knell, but not for her. Zara Klein stood outside St. Jude's Parish as the Oregon rain softened to a drizzle. The church's steeple, a dark silhouette against the clearing sky, its bells silent now after her storm. Inside, chaos lingered. Murmurs of shock, Theo's fans arguing, Victor and Margot huddling with a lawyer who'd arrived too late. But Zara was done with their stage. She'd handed her evidence folder to Frau Weber's U.S. contact, a gruff attorney named Daniels, who'd grinned at the notary email and said, "This is fraud, forgery, and theft. open and shut. Within days, the gears turned. An investigation launched. Klein Tech's accounts frozen. Theo's studio raided. His neon lights and rigs seized as evidence of the $120,000 he'd stolen. The trust fund, her grandmother's legacy, was clawed back from Theo's name, reinstated to Zara's, and her death certificate, or $47,291, was shredded in a Portland courthouse, her legal resurrection stamped official. She watched the ex-post she'd fired off mid-confrontation. They coded me out. I rebooted. Docs here. Hit 1 million views. The hashtag Zara Lives trending as clips from Theo's crashed stream ricocheted across YouTube. Comments flooded. Savage comeback and Theo's toast. Subcount tanking. She leaned against her rental car, the damp air cool on her face, and whispered, "I'm not their echo anymore." The words settled, heavy with freedom. She wasn't the glitch they'd branded her, nor the ghost they'd buried. Back in Berlin, she opened her laptop, not to debug, but to build, sketching the app she'd dreamed of 4 years ago. Her trust fund now seed money for her own code. Theo's Twitch channel went dark, his last post a stammered apology drowned by backlash. Victor and Margot faced charges, their tech empire crumbling under audits. Zara didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The world had seen, judged, and her truth had won. She posted one last X update. They deleted me to save themselves. I came back for me. It wasn't forgiveness she sought, never that, but a life unscripted by their lie. The attic skylight framed a star-pricked sky, and she smiled. Small but real, the first in years. Her phone buzzed. Lena, texting. "I'm sorry I doubted you. Coffee when you're back?" A bridge, maybe, but Zara didn't rush to cross it. She'd died in their world, been reborn in her own, and this time, the code was hers to write. The rain stopped, and in the quiet she began. The story of Zara Klein teaches that resilience and truth can reclaim a life stolen by betrayal. When her family framed her for Theo's theft, disowned her, and faked her death to bury their lies, Zara could have faded into the silence they forced upon her. Instead, she fought back, unearthing proof of her existence, visas, contracts, selfies, and crashing their staged memorial to expose their fraud. The lesson isn't just about confronting deceit. It's about refusing to let others define your worth or erase your story. Zara's family rewrote her as a troubled ghost to protect their image and profit, but she rewrote herself as a living force, turning their digital tools, Twitch streams, forged records, against them. Her triumph shows that even when stripped of everything, family, identity, trust, you can rebuild from the ashes of someone else's narrative. It's a warning, too. Lies may bury the truth temporarily, but it has a way of breaking free, especially when armed with evidence and resolve. Zara didn't just survive. She reclaimed her voice, proving that the deepest betrayals can forge the strongest comebacks, a lesson that resonates in a world where truth often battles erasure.